afternoon, Capital Tiger Bay Club. So wonderful to be gathered with you again today for another edition of our prestigious political club. Hope you're all getting ready for our most favored of Florida traditions for the month of November, arguing with your family over the results of the recount. My name is Jay Rebel, and I'll be moderating our program today. We have an exciting panel of great Floridians with us who are prepared to tell us what the hell actually happened and or continues to happen with our Florida 2018 elections. But before we get things started, as tradition would hold, we would like to share a few announcements with you all. Bill Nelson is fighting for his political career as the state has fallen into recount mode. Should he lose his seat in the Senate, we hear he is first in line to work at Disney World as a guide for the Space Mountain ride. Ron DeSantis is assuming the mantle of governor-elect in Florida. He's also assuming he can figure out how to do the job. Finally, and this is pretty important, this is some late-breaking news. Donald Trump has once again taken to Twitter to share his feelings about our hometown of Tallahassee, and we felt compelled to share this with you. He tweeted, "Congrats to the great conservative John Daley, elected mayor of Tallahassee. Crooks voted out, capital of Florida now back on track. JD is a fine American and strong on crime. Tally will be a shining city." Great conservative John Daley. Too much fun. It's always important when we have gatherings to check our audience for anyone who may be running for office. I know it's a little early, but 2020 will be here just around the corner, and I know some of you are probably scheming already. Just checking that out. But moving on to our program, what a time it is to be alive in Florida, right? After a contentious year plus of hard campaigning, accusations, missteps, and presidential tweets, we have finally arrived at a set of conclusive results here in Florida. There's no doubt that these results are solid, and everyone should feel confident in the electoral process here in the Sunshine State.
Whoa!
Oh.
We got a bunch of core votes here.
A little dicey. But hey, seriously, like I said, the results are highly accurate, and we know that we can count on our government to deliver timely results that are effective and efficient, and oh gosh, we've got more. Let's settle down. These things keep popping out of everywhere. We seem to be stumbling onto a trend here where ballots keep showing up all over the place.
Jay, I got an email from Bay County. 25 ballots right here.
Like I said, folks, we don't know what the hell's going on. But we've got a great panel here today, like I said, of folks who are some of the best experts in the state who are going to help us sort through all of this, and we'll get into introducing those folks to you right now. To my left, starting here, we have Kevin Cate. Multimedia whiz by the Miami Herald. He's a media consultant for some of the largest corporations, associations, and campaigns in the country. He has grown his company, CateCom, which was founded in 2010, into a powerhouse provider of media relations, media production, media training, media products, and advertising. Influence magazine recently named him one of the 100 most influential people in Florida politics, and Florida Trend has also designated him a person you should know. Cate is also a nationally recognized political consultant, including providing commentary on cable news channels such as CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News Channel. To his left is David Johnson. There you go. David is a Republican consultant who has worked with the Republican Party of Florida since the 1990s. After the 2000 census, Johnson served as executive director of the Florida GOP. In that position, he helped with reapportionment and also ran the 2001 re-election campaign for former governor of Florida, Jeb Bush. David has also run numerous Republican campaigns throughout Florida and around the rest of the country. His best accomplishment, however, may be that he is married to Tiger Bay board member Christina. And finally, last but not least, we have Steve Schale. Steve, in 2008, was the director for the Obama-Biden campaign here in Florida. He returned in 2012 as a senior advisor to that re-election campaign. In 2014, he led Gwen Graham's congressional effort. And most recently, Steve was a senior advisor and national spokesman for the shadow presidential campaign for Vice President Joe Biden, in which he made over 100 television appearances. In addition, Steve also has 2 decades of experience working in and around the Florida legislature, where he has served as a key strategist and communications professional for Democrats in and around the legislature. Today, he provides strategic advice to a number of clients at Cardenas Partners, including companies like Walt Disney World, AT&T, and State Farm. Widely quoted in national media as a top expert on Florida, the St. Petersburg Times called him one of the savviest and most effective political strategists Florida Democrats have seen in ages. So, ladies and gentlemen, your panel for today. What's going on in the Florida election of 2018? How would you frame that up, everyone? We'll start with you, Kevin.
Well, first off, thank you. If I could stand up. Thank you, guys. My name is Kevin Cate. I worked with Mayor Andrew Gillum on the campaign we just possibly ended, or soon will be ending soon. And I did want to congratulate, and I'll probably say a lot of things worthwhile in a minute, but for those of you who voted for Ron DeSantis, congratulations on your win. For those of you who worked for Ron DeSantis, congratulations on your win. For those of you who supported Andrew Gillum, first off, thank you very much for supporting him. Thank you for your vote. What we were attempting to do on this campaign was to build a movement, not necessarily a moment. I think you saw that in the primary. I think you saw it in the general, and I want everybody who voted for Andrew Gillum to be proud of that and know what we've done in this campaign is bigger than this just one election. I think you're going to see over here when we sit down and start talking about the details of what actually happened in the campaign, it's going to be easy to be lost about numbers here or there. Yes, it appears there's about maybe less than 30,000 votes separating us, which if you round it, we lost by 0%. But the goal, again, was never a moment. If it was, we wouldn't have talked about the things that brought kids to sit on Confederate monuments, to be able to see Andrew Gillum in Madison County, to go down to Richmond Heights in Miami-Dade, Florida, where people who have been disenfranchised and never participated in elections before participated, because he was willing during the primary and during the general to talk about issues that were difficult, that were not general election strategy issues, including stand your ground, including criminal justice reform, including obviously Medicaid expansion, and a myriad of issues. So before we get into the details of that, I want to acknowledge, number one, congratulations for those of you who were on the other side, but for those of you who were on the side of the movement, I assure you that Andrew Gillum has a bigger platform today, tomorrow, and 10 years from now because of this movement than I believe Ron DeSantis will ever have. So thank you for your vote, and congratulations to those of you who won.
That was a ride all the way to the top of the Capitol.
The Jeb Bush wall.
That's right. That's it. Yeah, all the way up that. Dave, we'll go to you next.
I don't know how to follow that exactly, but if it's an elevator ride, I mean, look, today we're making it up as we go along, really, much like the absentee ballot room in Broward County. Let's work with each other, folks. Come on, let's go. Thank you very much. I think that what we're finding right now is, as Jay said, I've worked at the party for a long time, and we worked there after the recount in 2000, when we found the massive flaws in the way that Florida was conducting elections. County to county, way too much leeway, not a lot of standards in terms of a close election. And that election, of course, more than any other, exposed those flaws. So a great deal of money and time and thought was expended to try to find a way that we can wrestle this beast. And right now we're finding out if we can wrestle with the laws that we had. Now, the good news is it will end. The bad news is we're going to have to redo some things because we're humans, and humans make mistakes, and humans do things they shouldn't. And I think we'll have a great opportunity in this legislative session to address some of those flaws. And I hope that we do that in a way that the next time, because we're Florida, there will be a next time, that we're a little bit more prepared, even so, than how we were. So that's a shorter elevator.
Steve?
No, I'm sorry. You're gonna be on Jim Acosta, you're on
All right, so let's start with a number that I think will maybe explain a little bit. So, you know, a lot of people, including me, think that America's current divide starts after Watergate. We sort of never really got over Watergate. And so if you go back to the presidential election after Watergate, 1976, through Trump, about 1.1 billion people have voted for president, or ballots have been cast, some of them in Dade County multiple times, but 1.1 billion people have voted for president in the US, and 2 million votes separate the two political parties. So if you start there, I mean, that's just how divided we are. It's like 0.000. If you take that, and then if you think about Florida, so I always think that in a lot of ways people describe Florida, I tend to like to use the words that came up by noted linguist Christine O'Donnell, who ran for the US Senate in Delaware in 2010. You may remember Christine O'Donnell was a witch, and she won the Republican nomination. I'm not going to make any commentary on that. In her first ad, she went on TV and she goes, "I'm not a witch. I am nothing that you think. I am you." And if you think about Florida, Florida is a reflection of the country. It's good, bad, ugly, indifferent, whatever. People live in this state because they came here from someplace else. And so if you think of how divided the country is, it makes sense that that our state is just as divided. 3 governor's races in a row decided by a point, 2 presidential elections decided by a point. If you add up all the votes in Florida for president since '92, 19,000 votes separate Republican, Democrat out of 51 million. We are just a deeply, deeply divided state. And that's not going to change anytime soon. And so elections in this state, just as this one was, just as Trump was, just as it was when Obama won, are divided very much at the margins. And so the good news for those of y'all that enjoy turning on cable news and watching nonstop coverage of Florida and recounts, the odds are pretty good you're going to see more of this over the next few cycles. So just, buckle up.
Wonderfully said. Kevin, I want to start with you when we get into some questions here. I want to note first, your storytelling abilities are very keen, and they were on full display throughout the campaign from Mayor Gillum. They're very impressive, and I found that the ability of Andrew Gillum in his campaign to communicate a clear, consistent message was incredibly impressive and very obvious. And I think, to your point, it certainly had the feeling of a movement happening across the state of Florida. So that being said, how did he look to you?
We got less votes.
That was a shorter elevator ride.
I think there's going to be, again, there's about 30-some thousand votes, and you can go back and look at any one thing. I think it would be disingenuous for anyone to point to any particular moment. Now, obviously, in campaigns, you have all kinds of moments where you can make a decision one way or the other. But the guiding principle of our campaign, which is a little different, for full disclosure, for those of you who don't know me, I worked for Governor Charlie Crist, along with Steve Schale, and also Alex Sink, I was their official spokesperson. I've lived through some of these campaigns. I've also read history books about Reuben Askew and Leroy Collins and other great governors and great Floridians. And the common thread among some of those great Floridians was a powerful story and a unwillingness to compromise to the moment. One of my favorite Leroy Collins quotes, which I tweeted out today, if you want to go back and look at it, is sometimes you have to do things no matter their cost. If that costs you the election, what kind of victory would it have been anyway? This is someone who lost based on the hearing with Martin Luther King Jr. in Selma. Reuben Askew also led a similar movement, and the things that we talked about were unapologetic. Not only telling Mayor Gillum's story, and he deserves all the credit for that. For anybody who thinks that anybody but Mayor Gillum came up with Bring It Home, they're wrong. Don't tell my mom that because she's very proud of that. But Mayor Gillum's narrative is unlike what we've seen in this state for as long as I can read back to Reuben Askew. But the things that we did on this campaign were uncompromisingly progressive to the extent that we won on those issues. You didn't see DeSantis' campaign coming at us about raising taxes because we won that issue and we were bold about it. We didn't sit back on our heels. You didn't see him run against Medicaid expansion because we won that. You didn't see him run on felon disenfranchisement because we won on that issue. All of the issues were there. What they did effectively towards the end of the campaign, at the beginning of the campaign, was running a purely negative campaign. I do television ads I did Mayor Gillum's ads, and I know I'm going up a long elevator now, but what we did was give a positive case, and we had a decision to make on this campaign whether we were going to scare the shit out of people or not at the end of the campaign. They chose to scare the shit out of people. They put on television that Mayor Gillum wanted to get rid of police officers, wanted to open borders, which, by the way, we're a peninsula. We don't have people crossing in caravans.
Georgia's pretty.
But the things that they did on that campaign, running 100% of a negative campaign, and I know John Daly's here, and you probably saw some things that happened in that campaign. There is a positive case to be made for negative ads. The negative ads that we ran against Ron DeSantis were using his own words, and were using issues that actually affected everyday Floridians, which is healthcare. We did not go into the gutter with him, and I think I'm extraordinarily proud about that. But to nitpick any particular instance over 30,000 votes would be doing a disservice to the arc of our campaign, which was not about picking and choosing and scaring some people. It was about writing a narrative and a uncompromising progressive platform to give Floridians that option, and I was proud of the fact that we did that.
Dave, we'll turn to you next. One of the candidates you worked with was Congressman Carlos Cabello in Florida's 26th congressional district. He lost his race by about 4,000 votes, just over a percentage point. He's a moderate Republican who chose not to embrace President Trump, was later criticized by the president during a post-election press conference. Is this a sign that moderates are being run out of the party to the long-term detriment to Republicans?
No, I don't believe that. Look, candidates matter to the district that they run in. Matt Gaetz has a very conservative district. He can say a lot of things and do a lot of things with a 65% guaranteed win total that other candidates will not be able to do. Carlos Cabello was running for re-election in the toughest district in the country that any incumbent Republican congressman had. If you're familiar with, they talk about the Charlie Cook reports. It was a D+6 seat. And the swing vote of that was evident in 2014. During the presidential, Carlos won the seat by 12 points. Hillary Clinton claimed the seat by 16. That's a 28-point swing. That's unheard of. And so for him to have run this time and run to the embrace of Trump would have been not smart politics. And at the end of the day, it's about who wins, is who gets to make the policy. It's the people that are standing there when they put their hand on the Bible and are sworn in are the ones that get to work. And we wish her well. Debbie McCarcel-Powell, they had a good candidate, good message. They ran very strong television and had plenty of money. When this is over with, we will see that the Democratic congressional wins were, it wasn't a blue wave, it was a green wave. And that's rare. That has not happened in the past, especially in midterms. It was outstanding work on their part.
That's great insight. Steve, we'll come to you next. This election cycle, we saw a number of high-profile progressive Democrats running for office, and a few in particular that caught fire on the national media scenes. Candidates like Andrew Gillum, Beto O'Rourke, and Stacey Abrams all ran, to your point, Kevin, unapologetically to the left. And as of today, they all appear to have lost. What do you think is the state of the Democratic identity, and is a sharp turn left a long-term strategy for the party?
Well, I think, first of all, to DJ's point on the green wave, I think I saw in the Democratic pickups, they were only outspending 3 races around the country. There's other congressional races, and again, that just doesn't happen. So he's absolutely right on that part. I think the thing we have to remember about elections is that the fundamental rules of states don't really change from cycle to cycle. The candidates change, and the issues change, and the people change. But Georgia is fundamentally a leaning Republican state. Texas is a Republican state. Florida is in the top of the ticket, a very competitive state, but definitely leans a little bit Republican. So, I think that the fact that we fell short in Florida, fell short in Georgia, fell short in Texas is less of a function of who the candidates were. You can make an argument in all 3 of those states. Certainly, I think in Texas, you can make an argument that without someone like Beto, it wouldn't even been as close as it was. So I think, it's, you know, if you look around the country, places that Democrats won congressional seats, they won urban communities, they won in blue states, and they won in suburban communities in red and blue states around the country. You look at statewide races where they won, with the exception of maybe Kansas, which was its own little special feature. You know, the Democrats won governor's races in places like, you know, Michigan, Wisconsin. I mean, that sort of makes sense. Republicans sort of won where they were supposed to win. So I think, you know, I mean, it's just, the thing about the term wave that always bothers me is wave connotates some kind of huge fundamental shift in politics. And really what a wave means is you win a tie. You know, if a district's gonna be 51-49 one way without a wave, it's 51-49 the other way with a wave. So, no, I mean, it's, if you look around the country, I mean, progressive Democrats won some places, conservative Democrats won some places. You know, and our party's, you know, I think part of what I like about our party, it's a huge, big, diverse mess of people. It's, you know, there's no common experience, and I think it's actually a strength of our party. But because of that, we're always going to have candidates that are all over the ideological spectrum.
Yeah, well said. And Ron DeSantis now positioned to possibly be governor-elect of Florida. His campaign was fueled, again to your point, Kevin, by the support of Donald Trump. Literally kind of came into that nomination by a tweet. And his campaign was largely based on criticism of Mayor Gillum. Coming into Election Day, very few Floridians or political pundits gave him much of a chance, but now that he seems to have won, what do you think that says about the electorate of our state?
I don't think there's one easy answer to that, but I do want to just point out, in politics or in anything that you're trying to accomplish, yes, there's a scoreboard for a moment, but it's just bigger than that. When you say Beto lost, or Stacey Abrams lost, or Andrew Gillum lost, you have to confine that to the election, because the way that Ron DeSantis won, and again, I know some of you all supported him, and that's fine. You have your own motives for it, but essentially, he is the vice governor with Donald Trump. And if you think for 1 second that history won't remember Ron DeSantis for Donald Trump, you're mistaken. And the cost of winning an election, sucking up to a racist, womanizing embarrassment of a president, that's fine. And I'm not saying that the people in this room that supported him, but I can tell you, I was there when the Proud Boys came and protested Andrew Gillum, when people threw racist epithets at him, when people put bumper stickers of his opponent on their car and sent bombs to people who supported Andrew Gillum. So that if you cannot deny that there is an undercurrent in this state, but the point that I want to make is you can win elections with Donald Trump, and that's fine. And he has every right to do that. Their campaign had every right to do that. But history will judge them accordingly. History will judge the people who stood with Donald Trump accordingly. And what Stacey Abrams and Beto and Andrew Gillum and progressives all around this country did were stand for something different and elevate the conversation. And people can point to Andrew, the mayor, for making a mistake here, a mistake there, in words or strategy, and they have every right to do that. But I do not see it as a loss, and I see Andrew Gillum's platform as, again, larger and deeper and wider and more long-standing and more historically relevant than Ron DeSantis will ever come close to touching.
Yeah, I think he's got a few points there that probably ought to be pushed back on a little bit. And to that end, and I respect Kevin a lot, I respect the campaign that they ran, but the campaign that they ran was one that in the Democratic primary snuck up and won. It was brilliant. It was very well executed. Jeff Green did the dirty work and took out Levine and Gwen Graham. And Andrew was running a very progressive, very smart campaign to win that election. Unfortunately, if you're a Democrat, some of the things that he did during that time frame set it up so that conservatives, no major party affiliates, had a hard time justifying that. I remember the debate in Jacksonville. That wasn't a debate, it was a forum. People sat in uncomfortable chairs, white guys. And basically, he was asked the question, are you a socialist, or are you a capitalist, or are you a socialist? He paused and said, "I'm a Democrat." That's a DQ moment for a lot of people in this state. And is there an ugly undercurrent in America? Yeah, absolutely. Did DeSantis have no vision? I don't believe that. It was a competing vision, and the competition is that close. It's that close. Are there people that support Republicans that I have not wanted to associate with? Absolutely. I'm sure there are folks on the Democratic side that Kevin feels the same way about. But the important thing is, again, coming together after it's over with, that the good people don't let the bad people run this state. And at this point, I think that we'll be there. I think we're okay. I think that we're stronger as a state and a country than any of the worst elements that we've got. So I hope that there's going to be time to heal, and I am sure that we are going to hear a lot more from
The results of the election, if I could say about the electorate.
I mean, listen, again, I go back to that sort of where I started. I mean, we are a deeply divided country, and we live in a state of people that come from all over the country. So we're a deeply divided state. And if you look at this election, just take a step back and just look at it numbers wise. Basically DeSantis and Scott both won the same way that Trump won, which is Democrats actually just looked at what most folks don't Hillary Clinton actually won the big Democratic counties by more than Barack Obama, increased turnout, but it was just offset by the fact that Trump ran up the score in places like Pasco and Hernando, Polk County, Volusia County, and all these places. And that's basically just from a math standpoint, kind of what happened again. And so I think when you look around look forward to 2020, you saw in 2018, just like in 2016, Democrats do very well in suburban communities. Places like Seminole County, which used to be probably one of the most Republican-based counties in the entire state, maybe the most Republican-based county in the state for a while, voted for a Democrat. Why? Because we've got the highest population of college-educated voters in the state. Probably now a Democratic county. You saw that repeat itself all around the country. So I think when you look towards 2020, we're gonna, I think first of all, one of the lessons of both Barack Obama and Donald Trump is people looking at running for president and go, well, Obama and Trump both won. I guess anybody can be president. And I don't mean that dismissively, but two very improbable people became president. And so therefore, I think pretty much everybody's going to run. I think we're going to have varsity debates and JV debates and JJV debates. You could see 20 plus candidates go to Iowa. And I think that's actually going to be a really healthy process for my side. You're going to get really going to have a battle over ideas and vision and kind of where we go. But functionally, when we get to 2020, again, the rules don't really change. The same states that were battleground states, maybe with the addition of Arizona, will be battleground states in 2020. And we'll have another close election in Florida. Just to give you an idea of how messed up, how close it could be. So if you take the last map, the Trump map, you say, okay, the Wisconsin and Michigan things, they'll probably come back. If you look at the governor's races there, we'll probably get this back in 2020. All right, so that gets us closer to 270. Okay, but let's give us Arizona. It looks like it's going the right way for us. So nothing else changes in the map. The Republicans win their states. They won in 2016. We win ours. You give us Wisconsin, Arizona, and Michigan. Guess what happens? It's tied. 269.
Once again, the Republicans in Florida have somehow maintained a firm grasp on government in the state, but they also seem to be facing an inevitability of more Democratic influence and the prospect of losing some of their power in coming years. What's the state of the GOP? What is the state GOP doing to counteract demographics and the changing winds of Florida's election?
After the 2012 election, I was part of something that it was a report to sort of redo the Republican Party. It was famously called the autopsy, which I didn't like very much, but anyway, here's your autopsy report. The press helped out with that a lot. And what we found was we needed to appeal more to, we needed immigration reform, we needed to be more appealing to younger voters, we needed to be more appealing to a more diverse demographic, Hispanic in particular, because of the rising demographic numbers in the country. And we did exactly the opposite of that, and Trump won the nomination through an amazing set of circumstances that will probably take 50 years to look back at with any kind of perspective. I mean, I worked for Jeb Bush for president. I was very proud of that, and I think he would have made a hell of a good president. However, he didn't win. And right now, we're sort of in a stalled situation. I mean, let's face it, the Republicans lost a net of probably going to be 36 or 37 seats in the U.S. Congress. We did pick up a couple of Senate seats, it looks like. If this recount stays the same, it'll probably be 52-48 with who caucuses with whom. But for the most part, the Republican Party of Florida, the one that I worked for, if you remember the names of Tom Slade and Al Cardenas, when they were the chairs, that was a machine. That was a machine that worked. There's still a machine, but it's not housed at the Republican Party of Florida any longer. It's now in different various political committees, and campaign finance reform has completely changed the way that it works. Also, you're going to need to have a governor that really likes the state party chairman, because that didn't happen in the last 4 years. For that to be viable, there are still 67 county operations that have got to recognize the fact that the Republican base is aging. The younger voters are having a harder time identifying with, and eventually it does catch up. It will catch up. The march of time is going on in Florida. And also the demographics are changing to a massive degree. So is it going to be 2020? Is it going to be 2024, 28? We will have to see, but certainly I believe that the party has got to do better in making it more appealing to a more diverse demographic.
I want to tell just a little story on that. And I mean, I think, first of all, I think it's important to remember when anybody wins or loses by 12,000, 30,000, even a point in a place like this, everything and anything and nothing mattered. I mean, it's like, to Kevin's point and DJ's point, I mean, like, you don't, it's hard to look at any one decision or any one thing, and sort of like, again, sort of all these things matter. But specifically, like, here's just an interesting data point on Hispanics and how Rick Scott approached Hispanics. So Scott, remember, sort of famously sort of ran as very anti-immigration, I'm going to bring the Arizona-style immigration law to Florida, yada, yada, yada. Figured out pretty quickly that was not going to be a long-term winning recipe for him getting elected and reelected in Florida, and sort of changed his view and really leaned in pretty hard, not only politically, but sort of in the governor's office in Orange and Osceola County. He was very engaged in helping Maria migrants get resettled here, and it is typically done a little better with non-Cubans and Puerto Ricans than your average Republican. What does that mean? Bill Nelson's ahead right now by, 12,500 votes? I mean, sorry, it's down by 12,000, but Scott's up 12,500 votes. Sorry, I've been up too late looking at numbers. Bill Nelson won the Orange and Osceola County, which is where most Puerto Ricans live, by 13,000 votes less than Andrew Gillum. So that little bit of work that Rick Scott did that was a little bit different than your average Republican, reaching out, going to county fairs, putting staff on the ground in places like Orange and Osceola County, and unlike Donald Trump, actually attempting to have some kind of an open door to, even if it's just in name only or in outreach only, not in policy, to those Puerto Ricans, may very well be why he's
Nice to be able to impart me putting my Chamber of Commerce hat on a little bit. And one of the things that I love about all of the content that you were producing from the campaign trail, you always had a hat on that had TLH on. And I think, it was a bruising campaign. Our community, my personal opinion, I think y'all would all share, there's a lot for us to be proud of here. We have a great community to live in. But I will say that this community took a beating at the hands of the campaigns that were out there, mostly in the governor's race. I would love your opinion from a media perspective. What's the impact of all that on our community moving forward?
It wasn't good. It wasn't good, and I did wear that TLH hat and intend to continue to, Mayor Daley, wherever I go around the state, because I'm raising my 3 children here. I love Tallahassee. I'm a member of your Chamber of Commerce, which you all should be members of if
Indeed.
And promoting Tallahassee. It was striking what, and you know, you can run advertisements and you can talk about it. It was striking what the other side of the campaign was able to put into their supporters' bloodstream, because they were mainlining it, and that was this scary, horrible, murderous capital of the world, and that's a choice that they made. I mean, I remember even working for Lorraine Osley, who, I don't know if she's here, Representative Osley, but I remember when she was running for CFO and some of the consultants were like, you got to trash Tallahassee and this kind of stuff, and she was like, what am I going to do that for? It's like, you make these choices. I do think Tallahassee is going to be, people forget, just like they're going to forget the caravan and all the other things that made them temporarily angry. They will forget that. I hope all the Republicans who made a lot of money off of these campaigns spend a lot of money here. The lobbyists will still be lobbying. The industry will still be here. But I do think, and I want to thank those of you who, because we saw it on Facebook during the debates or during comments and things like that, people who were from Tallahassee stood up for it. Brendan Farrington with the Associated Press wrote an entire fact check against it, so if you can send that to your friends and family so they come for Thanksgiving, please do. If you don't want them to come, just send them a Ron DeSantis commercial, and they won't. But I do think that, I'm certainly proud to be from Tallahassee, and I think the mayor did, to the best of his ability, told Tallahassee's story with, a lot of input from y'all and a lot of input from Walt McNeil and others who were really championing what's actually happening in Tallahassee as opposed to what that campaign was putting out.
Right, thank you. So rapid fire real quick, these are kind of one-word answers, and then we'll go to a couple of questions from the audience. So we'll just start going right down the line with you, Kevin. Who's the 2022 Democratic nominee for governor of Florida?
It depends if Andrew Gillum's running for president or not, I suppose.
David.
Steve?
I just think we live in an era, part of one word, where nobody's anointed anything, and that's a good thing. So, I mean, I think clearly if Andrew wants to run for governor, he probably starts very much as the front runner. But I think there are folks out there, whether it's folks like Stephanie Murphy in Orlando, who may look at it, Kathy Castor sort of was running statewide in the past, Nikki Freed, who, could very well now. So, I mean, I think that, the thing about politics is you just, who knows what happens in the intervening few years that could change those things. But, I still think my party has a really deep bench all around the state. And so I think, it'll be robust.
That's absolutely correct. The Democratic Party bench has improved drastically in the last 4 or 6 years. Very much so. It was not strong before, it's better now. And I think that'll help in future endeavors. Absolutely.
This is a one-name answer. Who's more likely to be an elected official again, Gwen Graham or Adam Butler? Back to you.
Can we start with Steve on that one? Sure. I don't know what she wants to do. Steve knows her better than I do.
I mean, listen, but both of them are young. I think, I honestly, Gwen's not talked about running in the future. Doesn't mean she will or she won't. But I think both Gwen and Adam Putnam, I mean, they ran in bad years, and we ran into those guys. Gillum ran a great campaign, and we ran into Jeff Green, who didn't like us. And but I don't think either one of their careers, should they choose, are foreclosed in any way.
Co-sign.
Yeah, I have to agree. I don't know what Commissioner Putnam's future, I don't know what he wants to do. I mean, I met him in 1996 here when he was fresh out of UF and was running for the state house. And, we weren't sure if he had a valid Florida driver's license at the time. So, but he proved himself to be a very effective and capable administrator and leader. He was rising to the top of the Republican conference in DC when he decided to come back. So probably a little reset is what both of them need.
Yeah, I would say if Commissioner Putnam is elected statewide as a Republican in Florida, I think that says a lot about the Republican Party going back to the Jeb Bush era and a decent era of the Republican Party.
All right, one word to describe 2018 election. Start with you.
Still going. I'll be going to a meeting after.
Painful.
I'm going to use a word that was actually invented by a famous Florida State graduate and noted linguist, Deion Sanders. Shabacle.
will be. That being said, I want to thank our panel for being with us today. Please give them a warm round of applause.